Get ready, it's time for the podcast voted most likely to make you say, what the flock? It's the Talking Pools show. And here are your hosts, the dysfunctional duo of myth-debunking pool pros, Rudy Stankiewicz and Andrea Nannini.
Hold up, wait a minute.
Hey guys, it's Rudy Stankiewicz, and I am here with my co-host, Andrea Nannini.
Hello, it's me.
It is Andrea. I can see her. You can't, but I can see her, so I will vouch for her that it is her. And we also have a guest today. We have Steve Barnes. Steve Barnes is the Science and Compliance Director at Aquastar Products, and he's going to talk with us a little bit today about some of the VGBA, Virginia Graham-Baker Act. There's been some changes this year, so Steve, say hello to everybody.
Steve Barnes is joining us now via satellite radio from an undisclosed location. Please hold as we connect your call.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I am honored to be here and join you.
Well, we are honored to have you here.
We are, yes.
A special treat for our guests. So, how are you doing today? I mean, this has been one weird season for us. I don't think I've ever been through one where there's been so many out of stocks. Have you?
No, I've been in the industry since 1984 as a research and development tech. It was a summer job kind of gig. I think people have heard that story before, right? And then some 37 years later, still doing the same thing, although now I'm running a state-of-the-art ISO certified lab for Aquastar, so that's pretty cool. But
Hey! Aquastar Pool Products is a leading maker of VGBA-compliant drain covers and also offers skimmers, autofill, deck drains, cleaners, mosaics, ozone, chemical feeders, spa jets, and fittings to the industry. Aquastar's products are even made right here in the USA. For more info, visit aquastarpoolproducts.com.
really, my life has just been surreal simply because we in the pool industry are essential. I think our audience knows that. But the other thing is because we had the federal drain cover deadline of May 24th, 2021. So the VGB Act just changed on May 24th. And to get ready for that, I live in Arizona. I own property in Arizona, and I see it once in a while, but I've been a lot of time in beautiful Ventura, California. We've done thousands and thousands of drain cover tests. And so all through, I was the only one in a Marriott for 6 weeks. Well, the only one on the floor of the Marriott in Ventura for 6 weeks last summer. And I've been out.
Now that must have been a little bit, Jack Nicholson-ish.
Red rum.
Oh my goodness.
To be the only one on the floor of a hotel.
Yeah, it was, and I was there for weeks. So I checked in and saw people. Other than that, I came in a side door with a cart. Nah, man, it was wild.
You didn't see them little twin girls down the hallway, did you?
I went the other direction.
I would too. So now so this is the only federal pool law, is that correct?
Yeah. So the only ANSI standard, the only pool related standard in federal law that's an ANSI standard is the drain cover standard. Now, pool pumps are now federally regulated with the variable speed. So, but that's not an ANSI standard. The government came in and basically looked at the ANSI standards and said, no, we don't like them. We're writing our own. And they were voluntary in that sense. But relative to products and all that, yeah, the VGB Act is the only one that references in the pool standard.
George W. Bush, it went into effect on December 19th.
2008, it was passed into law the year prior. What was really weird about it, and this time around will be different, is the drain cover standard, and I've been involved in that since 2002. It goes back to 1987. But it was voluntary prior to the VGB Act. It was
the NSPI-16-17. Is that what it was?
Yeah, it started out as ASME A112-19-8. And then ASME, when the whole VGB Act thing kind of blew up, they said, we're out. We do plumbing fixtures. We don't want to deal with these pools and federal law and all all that. So then the name changed to the APSC, which that name has now changed with the merger of the National Swimming Pool Foundation and all of that. So now it's the PHGA. So the name will change again, but the content didn't. But what happened back in 2007 is the standard was really radically revised to include body block and full head of hair were the two big impacts on drain covers of the day. So that standard passed like in February. Congress said, hey, yeah, this is great. Let's make it a national law. And we'll give you a whole year to comply. And that includes...
Well, I am actually having some main drain issues in one of my commercial pools. Basically, they're leaking. We can't figure out at the moment from where. The pools are closed right at the moment, but it's been pretty much a nightmare to deal with because he had the drains plugged, and so I couldn't run the pump, and now it's 90. It was 91 degrees today on my way home, so I have a rough situation at this pool to deal with.
He doesn't feel bad for you. He said he has property in Arizona. He may or may not. It may only be where he keeps his stuff, but you ain't got nothing on 91.
It's 120.
Never been to Arizona. I hear there's a big difference between dry heat and humidity, so I'm just going to leave it at that.
Hey, here's something you can try at home. Turn your oven up to 200, give it 5 minutes, and then lean in. It's a dry heat.
Oh, no.
That's a joke. Don't really do that. Yeah, there you go.
I do that every time I bake.
Andrea, I think this is the first time ever a guest has actually suggested you stick your head in an oven.
You know what? It's something that Rudy has wanted to do every single episode, so he's just glad.
Seriously, so we have something weird going on. Hansel and Gretel scenario. Somebody's going to toss Andrea in an oven. It's all cool with me. We do have some questions about this new standard. Andrea, did you have something for Steve?
Well, yeah, I was wondering, you said it changed on May 24th of this year. I was just wondering what changed, and basically who's affected by it.
So there's a couple of mainly, let me start here. It's a rolling deadline, meaning that product made before May 24th follows the old VGB as we know it. Everything manufactured after you follow the new VGB. It's mainly for test labs and manufacturers, some technical stuff. The effect on our users, their installers, is you're going to get a lot more information with the instructions and the product in advance. Basically,
okay.
It's, so now it's how do you troubleshoot? There'll be information. How do you winterize? If a screw's stripped out, what do you do with it? A lot more information about how to install the product successfully. In the test lab, now it used to be the old VGB 2008 standard, you would basically have one flow rating for a drain on the floor and another on the wall. And now, and it didn't matter pipe size, some depth, there were some minimums and particulars, but basically you had two flow rates. Is it VGB certified? Yes, I'm good to go. Well, what the new testing has done is every pipe size has to be tested. So if you have a 10-inch A10 RCFR, for example, our universal, before it had one flow rating of 170, both for the floor and the wall. Now it has flow ratings for every pipe size. So it can be installed on, we have sumps up to 6 inches. So the flow rate's higher for the 6-inch pipe because you can move more water through it.
That just makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so a lot of it is confirming physics, but when you go to the other extreme, 1.5-inch pipe, you can't get very much water through it without creating a real high vacuum, cavitating the pump, those kinds of issues. And so you can't pass the test because you can't get water through the pipe. So the flow rates for smaller pipe are going down. Now,
let me ask you, is there any product left from before May 24th?
Yes.
I mean, with all the shortages and the increase in builds that we've had and the huge jump in pools being installed, is there leftover product?
The white and the grays, the most popular, are about gone. And so now if you want powder blue and black, you can probably still find it. But we're well underway of having everything recertified to it. We're AquaStar has moved to NSF. Our our lab, we're doing our own hair and body block testing. The hair and the body block are the two critical things that drive the flow rates. And the reason every pipe size is being tested is the hair travels through a drain cover into the pipe. And if it's, and it can tangle, so that's a safety issue. So every pipe size will be given its own flow rate. I can tell you, having run thousands of tests here over the last couple of years, is basically the VGBA flow ratings way above what our pools are capable of operating at. So while, you're going to see a lot more flow rates, and on the first blush, they might appear to be going down, but no one could ever physically, at the limits of water vaporizing, move 170 gallons a minute through 1.5-inch pipe. I've got video of it vaporizing at 152. That's where the water entering the pipe is moving so fast it sounds like a jet engine, and it actually is like a jet turning hard. You see the vapor above the wings? That's what the water does in our testing. And so you can't, a pump can't operate there.
Nice. It must be pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, it is. We got to blog some of this stuff. Some of what we're seeing, because we're doing thousands of tests per week.
Blog? We want to fly out.
Well, hey.
We would like an invitation.
You got it.
I want to watch the pipe, water vaporize in the pipe, and Andrea was going to volunteer for the...
What? Because of Arizona, right, and Las Vegas, we ship plastic parts in the backs of trucks, and they were coming out looking like Pringles chips.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
And so now there is actually a test in the standard, and this goes back to 2007. The original is... whatever manufacturers can do whatever they want, just got to work. So you pick a plastic and it has to go into an oven, literally, like it's in a shipping box going through Las Vegas or Arizona for 7 hours at 140 degrees. I've done over the years. I've been in the suction safety for decades, and when we were doing the hair test, we'd put on wigs, knowing we could leave the wig and swim to the surface.
That makes
sense. Body block and some stuff like that. But with your own hair, never, ever do it. Never do it.
That must have been super cute.
Yeah. No, that one must have been awesome. But so my question, and this is completely a little bit off topic. So I always try to make my daughter and myself included, I always put my hair up in pools. That's definitely something that can help, right?
Absolutely.
Suction entrapment.
Yeah,
Good to know. Good to know I was right, because I get argued with.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, since the VGB Act was passed, it's been 100% successful. We have not had an entrapment on a VGB compliant pool.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
We've had that's the good news. We have had VGB compliant pools that were not maintained because they changed the pump, and the pump could move more water. Heads up, world. Variable speed pumps are coming. Pay attention to your drain covers when you swap out to that variable speed pump.
So they're going to need to go with the top end speed when they size these?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why the pipe size and all of that conversation, that's why we're drilling into those details.
Okay.
So that you will have in your hands, here's the flow rate for this situation. But I am very confident the flow rates we see in the pool are going to be way below what the VGB ratings are.
Okay.
Even though it won't be a one-size-fits-all. But the problem we see with the entrapments in public pools and spas is kids, girls primarily, 9 to 13 years old, who have long hair. They don't have a pool themselves, so they're doing handstands in spas, and their hair gets near the drain. Or in some cases... in spots because it's shallow water.
Yeah, I have never done that when I was a little kid. No, I totally have. That's like something that is common, right? I mean, I've definitely done it. And so that's scary to think about.
Yeah, it's just one of the scary realities because I've always had relatively short hair, even though I'm old enough to have 60s hair sometimes. But is a grandfather who's watching his granddaughters do handstands in the spa for over an hour, taking turns. Finally, he came out. He was watching through a window. They're 13-year-old young teenagers. He's like, "What are you doing?" And they're, oh, Grandpa, we're doing handstands over the drain. It makes our hair tickle.
Oh, no.
Wow.
Scared him to death. And that actually, I mean, I was aware of it through the lab research, but that was the gut check of that's how this happens. And the hair test lasts over almost 2 minutes. And I used to think from product designer, R&D lab guys, this is ridiculous. No one can hold their breath that long. All of a sudden, yeah, they do. So,
and this is the most common form of entrapment, or at least it has been in the past, correct?
It is post VGB, because now it used to be we would get kids, adults, everyone in between could lay down or sit on or lean against flat and flush mount drains.
Correct.
Because they were 8 inches and they were flat and flush mount. That was what Virginia Graham Baker, that was, a spa with a single 8-inch drain. And so the body block was added in 2007. And that's why the small drains all stick up off the floor of the pool. The robot catchers, your toe stubbers and all of that. The reason is you can't pass the test if they don't stick up, or they have to be unblockable. So that's why the future of drains and pools are the unblockables. And that just means that they're bigger than your man's chest, basically 18 by 23 inches. And so if it's smaller than 18 by 18, they can't.
And do we anticipate that? I mean, so that's the future. Do we anticipate, obviously, that's going to be, if it's adopted by health department codes, that's going to be something that's grandfathered up until the point where some type of construction's formed, and then they're going to have to comply to those larger grates?
It's an option. We have some that are retrofittable, for example, that you can take a small one to a bigger one to get to larger flow rates. That's going to be one way on public pools, where the health departments have been looking at the max flow of the pump on a high speed. And it might be small pipe, 2-inch pipe with a 3-horsepower variable speed pump that says can get to 170 gallons a minute. You're never going to get that through the pipe. So the big challenge we're going to have on public pools is they're going to look at the max flow of the pump. It's going to be above what the drain covers are rated for on the installed pipe size. So we're going to have to kind of deal with that. But the existing pools will never have to be retrofitted to unblockable. It's really just another option for new construction or remodels or retrofit. It's an option if you have a single 8-inch drain and you don't want it to stick up, then you have options on that. But basically, where we're seeing that trend is new construction. So flat, flush mount, you can use one instead of 2.
In educating the folks that are going to be installing these, building these, and inspecting these, that's going to be a little bit of a challenge, I think, especially with the variable speed pumps having to go with the top flow rate, and you're going to get the kickback. Well, I'm only operating it at such and such, and there's a bunch of education that has to go on here, so health officials know what to look for.
Yeah, the new construction's pretty easy. Make sure the easy design approach for new construction or remodel is look at what's the max flow of my pump curve and pick a cover that's above it. And we can make everything from 6-inch up to 36 inches and everything in between. And there's lots of options in the marketplace. Right now it's a little thin, both supply chain, and then also everyone's having to retest and remark. And so what's new and what's not. But like next year kind of a thing, you'll have lots and lots of options. The key changes relative to this one is to understand it's a manufacturing date, so follow the rules of the drain cover in your hand. If it was made last year or whatever, it's been on the shelf. If it's in the Leslie's, as you say, and it was made before the deadline, follow those rules. We're not,
Okay.
VGBA Act's 100% effective when it works. But the big change for the new stuff is you're going to have to know basically 2 new things. What's my pipe size in addition to flow rate? What's my pipe size and how deep is it? And then pick a cover that matches that. So it is more on the installers because they're that's the boots on the ground or the trunks in the water, so to speak. And you need, and that's other than that, follow the instructions. There's just a lot more instructions.
We interrupt this podcast to listen to bacon sizzle.
So when the existing pool drain covers expire, can they be replaced with the same drain cover model?
They can if the if that drain cover model has been certified for that installation. So, for example, if the drain cover is rated for 3-inch or larger pipe, and the drain cover in the pipe in the pool smaller, then that answer would be no. Actually, that's a bad example. The better would be is the drain cover's been rated for 2-inch pipe and there's 6-inch pipe in the pool. You can get a lot more water through it. So in that case, you're going to have to look at every installation. Like for like replacements in public pools are only allowed if the like for like replacement is certified for that application. So, and so everything that's on the shelf in the pipeline is all legal to install and continue to use in pools until it's expired. So typically 5 years, let's say, or 10 years for public pool stuff. At the end of that, when it's time to go change out those drain covers, that's when the installer needs to look at, is this cover appropriate for this installation? And was it originally installed correctly? One of the things is many manufacturers require deep, really deep sump depths, 1.5 pipe diameters. And concrete pools are typically much shallower than that. So if somebody has put a cover that needs a deep sump on a shallow sump, don't replace it with that cover. Don't repeat somebody else's mistake is the key there. And that's where like for like can be an issue. There's lots of options. You're just going to have to do a little more homework. One of the things that we're really focused on in the initial offerings in our retrofit line is testing everything as shallow as possible on every pipe size. So 0 sumps for 1.5 inch, 2-inch, 3-inch. So then if it's been certified for 0 sump depth on all pipe sizes, you don't need to know what the pool is before you get in it. You know you're going to have a cover that's going to comply. So 810 or 1216s, 914s, our Aquastar's universal stuff, that's where we've been doing these hundreds and hundreds of tests to make it so one cover will fit almost everything. You know the size?
With your retro products, with your universal product, let me ask you that. What percentage of the market do you think that you cover there? At least where are we at? What are we shooting for?
So the A10 RCFR is a 10-inch round cover, and it is designed to address everything 10 inches and smaller in every pipe size and every configuration. That's been the bulk. All of that is NSF listed and available. You can independently go look at NSF and see that there's lots of pipe sizes and lots of flow rates to go with that.
Right.
And so that covers all the round stuff, residential primary. And then our other focus is the 9x9s, 12x12s.
Right.
Those are few. There's a lot of those out there in shallow pipe configurations. You get to the bigger stuff in water parks and all of that.
Residential brings up a good point. I don't know if obviously no one monitors that, but I don't know if you've been following or not this whole Swimply trend. Have you been watching that?
I saw it enough to say, well, that's a catchy name. But
it is a catchy name, but
what is that?
It's an Airbnb for swimming pools. What they do is, like, say, for example, you have a pool in your backyard and you decide that you're not going to be using it. You want to make a little bit of extra money. You can rent it out to a different family to come, and they hang out and swim in your backyard, and you charge them an hourly fee.
Interesting. No, I had not. That's fascinating.
So it's kind of blown up a little bit, but one of the things I wanted to bring up, because it's going to start to, I think it's going to be, we're going to see it start to fall apart. That's my guess at this point. Denver, the entire state of Minnesota, they've already put their foot down. Minnesota Health Department came out point blank and said, you know what? These are commercial pools. If you're renting it in your backyard, it's a commercial pool. It needs to meet all public pool requirements, including inspections, VGB, all of it, or it's a $10,000 fine. I don't believe Denver's fining anybody at this point, but I can't help but think that that's going to be one of those things that rolls from state to state. And then for the folks that do hang in there and do want to continue to rent out their backyard pools, they're going to have to comply. And there's going to be some major renovations involved if they're willing to invest the money.
Yeah, I can tell you the drain covers hugely important, but that's the easy part. We got solutions for that. You get into chemical automation, monitoring and control requirements, handrails, markings. You're not doing this. You're not, yeah. If they apply that standard, that's interesting.
Oh, no. And even with the turnover requirements, it's going to be ridiculous.
Wheelchair,
ADA. Yeah, that's true.
That's what I was trying to say. Yeah, the ADA.
They'll be considered transient facilities. So ADA requirements are going to apply for sure. So scary stuff with that. So
what does make the difference in the floor and the wall drains different? The flow rate, I mean.
So it comes down to hair. Almost all these big changes are related to hair going into the cover. It follows the water, and then it goes into the pipe. So if you picture a drain on the floor in that scary scenario, girls are potentially doing handstands, or boys with long hair. So the hair goes right down through the cover into the pipe. And when they decide they need air, they go right straight up. So the test simulates that. The hair pulls straight up. Take that same drain and put it on the sidewall, footwell of a spa. Now the hair goes in and it makes the turn into the pipe and through the cover. So when you pull straight up, it takes more force because you're pulling around a corner or multiple corners. So that's why floors and walls always have different flow rates. Sometimes
Gotcha.
They're saying that the hair just lays on the cover and pulls off either way. Where you have big differences in flow rates, floor and walls, the hair is going into the pipe. And now so we expand that. You could have pipe going out the bottom on the floor drain, or it can be a sump bucket, right? Because it's a hydrostat or whatever on the bottom. So now the hair goes in while the cover is straight up and down. The hair goes in and turns into the pipe on the side. So it's all of those things are mechanically. The way the standard works is the hair weighs for 30 seconds, it holds for 30 seconds, it floats for 30 seconds, and then you pull at 5 inches a second. So it's felt like you swim into the surface of the pool. And that force can't exceed 5 pounds. So you pull, you gotta come free, and it can't exceed 5 pounds. That's a pass-fail. And each drain cover has to pass that test 20 times. So there's lots and lots of hair tests. So it's very conservative. But to put it into context, if you take 3 or 4 hairs and you twist them together and try and pull them apart, that's over 10 pounds. So failing the drain cover test at a flow rating, it only takes 2 or 3 or 4 hairs to twist, and then the test is failed.
That's fascinating. Sorry, it's really fascinating. Like I said, because I happen to have very long hair, and and I know how insanely tangled it gets just in the wind. So I can't imagine like a force. The numbers that I would like to read that again, just because that was it's pretty fascinating just to think that there's actual tests done on that.
Do you test 100% of your drain grates?
Yeah, federal law requires all of them. Well, not after.
So
not every one off of the assembly line.
Okay.
Unlike pumps, filters, that kind of thing, those are 100% tests, typically speaking, for our industry. Drain covers is you have one, picture your typical 8-inch round drain cover. You test it every way it can be installed. This on the wall, on the floor, with a side pipe, with a bottom pipe, or 2 pipes, whatever. All of those end up with a unique flow rating because the hair behaves differently as it follows the law. But once it's done, it gets a certification, and then it's kind of like electrical systems. It's like you have to certify an outlet or a GFCI. Once it's certified, a pump, motor, or filter, you don't have to test them all the time.
How does your pool service person out in the field know when the grate's expired?
So that's one of the helpful changes in the standard is you're going to get new instructions that say what the drain cover is, and there's a place to fill in when it was installed and where. So if you're looking at an apartment complex or lots of pools and bodies of water with lots of drains, each drain is going to have its own paperwork. Say it was installed on August 2021. It's the month, not the day. And then it expires in 5 years. The only way to track that, because life and life service life is from date of install with or without water. And then typically it's 5 years. So the only way to know is for that to be properly installed. Now, back in the day with the VGB, when do we know if a public pool was updated or not? It's been 5 years. When was it installed? Because they go back and accept the CPSC and health departments would accept invoices saying, here's when I bought them. I don't know what day of the week it got installed, but here's why I bought them. To solve that problem, make life easier for everyone, we want to provide that information. And the idea is you keep it in the pool paperwork, maybe a sticker inside the, time clock or whatever. But the goal is to track when was it installed, what was its flow rating, so that anyone coming back to service the pool, to inspect the pool, will know, okay, this was done in August of 2021. It's good to go. I don't need to worry about it for 5 years. Where that becomes real important is when that 1.5 horsepower single speed pump dies and you go to replace to find out they don't exist anymore, and they sell you a whiz bang variable speed that can move twice as much water. That's the scenario that kind of makes me nervous.
A lot of people don't know that going into it either, that it does pump a heck of a lot more water than what they had there in the first place. So let's say hardware. Let's say Andrea's out there in the field and she comes across, she knows, but I'm going to just use her an example, before we set her on fire. But she's out there in the field and she comes across a pool. She sees a screw missing. So she just runs over to the nearest hardware store and gets a screw.
Oh my God, he is just throwing me under every single bus.
Not a good idea. No. We don't want that. The state. No, that's a bad scenario that has resulted in entrapments that triggered the VGB law. Not in Graham's case, not Virginia Graham Baker, but Abigail Taylor was a public pool, 8-inch wading, 8-inch drain that the mud frame was stripped out, so the installer got drywall screws from Home Depot.
Yeah, that was a terrible story. I read that.
And they rusted out in a matter of days, and then a 6-year-old girl sits on where the drain cover should have been. And that actually, Abby's Hope, if you want to see a heartbreaking story.
That's Abby's Hope. For those of you who couldn't see, I got the water watchdog.
Is that
out? Yeah, that. We talked about that in another episode.
Yes.
I didn't mean to interrupt you again.
Abby's Hope. That's that story. So now manufacturers.
She's a water watchdog.
The drain cover standards requires us manufacturers to supply stainless steel if it's connected with screws. Stainless steel to 316. And you need to use the fasteners that come from the manufacturer. That's the full stop. The reality is you can get equivalents from hardware stores. Don't do it. Get them from the manufacturer. Because if something bad happens, we as a manufacturer say, that's not our screw.
So I have to admit it was meant to be a leading question. But the point is that those screws, that's part of the code. You have to use the screws that come with the grate. And if you're missing one, the replacement screw has to come from the manufacturer, period, the end.
Yeah. And we have covers that it has to go on a new product. So the screw has to go in the mud frame, have everything that came with it. So that's the only way that product's to be used. We have many others, the universal A10 RCFR I've mentioned previously. That has 8, 9 different kinds of screws, including concrete anchors. So you can drill into the concrete. You could drill through that stripped out plastic mud frame, attach a fastener, and then attach to that. And so there are other options, but whatever they are, they have to be in the instructions and they have to be certified. So it's got to be more than just, Steve says it's okay, do whatever you want. It's actually got to be third party certified.
So my question is just about changing a motor. So if you changed out a motor and it was a different horsepower than the one that was installed, would you have to change the drain cover?
You'd have to change the pump, or you'd have to drop size the impeller. You're not going to be...
Yeah, so if you went, let's say, hypothetically, you have a 1 horsepower single speed pump and associated motor, you can put a larger horsepower motor on it. It's just not going to work very hard to turn that small impeller. So you can go to a bigger motor from a physics point of view, right? They turn at 3450 or something like that. And so it's got more horsepower. That's, like driving your car at 35. It's designed to do 70 or 180, depending on what part of the state you're in. But generally speaking, if you're just changing a motor, you need to match the motor. What I just said, the physics may apply. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Good practice. You're not going to make money out of it anyway. But it's when it's the other extreme. When you're replacing a motor, you got to match the impeller, as Rudy mentioned. It's when you crease the whole good that everything's changing. And another example is switching from sand to cartridge. The head loss through cartridge, you can move a boatload more water through a cartridge filter than you can its equivalent sand filter. And so the two scenarios are new pump, variable speed, and if you're going from sand to cartridge, those are two areas to really pay attention.
Oh, no, absolutely. I'll tell you, I was out this is back when I had my service company. I was out at a new customer's house. I was there to give a bid, an estimate, and they had the dedicated suction line for their cleaner and no cap, no cover, no anything. And while I'm there, I'm talking to them and I said, well, that's going to be the first thing we have to do. And they're like, well, how much is that? That's not an expensive piece. And they're like, we're going to hold off on that. Well, the kids were playing in the pool at that time, and not shortly after that, like within minutes, the kid got stuck to the wall.
Oh my goodness.
They flipped out. They didn't know what to do. I walked over and just clicked the timer, and then the kid was released. But I'll tell you what, that hickey that kid had closed that cell like that. I mean, seriously, it scared the heck out of them. But people don't get how dangerous these things can be. That needs that same vac lock that the commercial setups require.
I've had that happen to me emptying leaf canisters. I've had them stick to my hands, and I've ended up with big red circles. So,
yeah, see, those things fortunately are near the surface, or you can get to the surface. It's when you get in spas and pools that we end up with the fatalities, because you can't. There's nothing to do.
Well, even just the amount of time trying to get to a cutoff switch or the time clock. Some of the pools that I do, the pump switches are several steps away from the pool area or even the pump area. So,
well, that's where what we do as a manufacturer, and then I'm heavily involved. I'm chairman of the drain cover standard and suction energy efficiency, all kinds of stuff at the PHTA, Pool and Hot Tub Alliance. And one of the things that was front and center is what can we do for everything from electrical to suction and just everything in the pool that our customers don't need to know anything to be safe. I mean, there's don't get your hair near it and all these things that are certainly responsible. But what we're doing in testing all these drain covers is to make sure that the covers that are installed, people don't need to know anything about to be safe. So that their size, that's our goal.
That's an amazing goal, because that eliminates the need to educate, that eliminates the need to argue with somebody about it, right?
Yeah.
Non-believers in whatever it is that you're saying. So that's a fantastic goal, and I hope we make that.
The drain covers is the one category, if you select the right one and install it per the instructions, I think we're 99% of the way there. There's always freak things that we can't predict and all of that. But I have a high degree of confidence in that. Where there's some areas, electrical safety, water itself, drowning. But why we're in the backyard to enjoy the pool is the biggest hazard and will always be. And that goes back as long as we've been swimming as a society, or the bathtubs and buckets. And so, watching the little ones and even our parents, and, as they get older, they often get overlooked as, you shouldn't swim alone, is not, the elderly population. We had to rescue mom out of the pools because she can't see well and stepped off into the pool. And, where's mom? Oh my, so that was a personal experience. So, there's hazards in the backyard, but with the electrical self-closing gates, make sure they're maintained, the suction safety. If we just do those things as an industry, then, we're solving the majority of these problems.
So why did the VGB Act change?
The VGB Act itself references the only industry's pool ANSI standard, the drain cover standard, and as an ANSI standard, all of them have to be reviewed and revised every 5 years. If that process is not completed within 10, they just go away. So that's true of every ANSI standard for pumps, motors, filters, including drain covers. And so, this one was approved in 2007, 2017. So we were right to that 10-year deadline. Now, we did change names to APSP in 2011. But so the standard itself had to change for ANSI standards. And then we did a lot of cleanup on the test lab instructions. How do you know when a drain cover is expired? So we looked at, okay, what are the challenge to making people successful installing these products? And there just wasn't a lot of information with drain covers. And so now, instead of one piece of paper, you probably are going to get a book.
So how are you guys dealing with the changes? I know you have a lot of different products.
So I touched on this a little bit. Yeah, we touched on this a little bit. Is we focused on where is there going to be a crisis, okay? Because we like to think of ourselves as, after 40 years, knowledgeable in the pool industry. Collectively, it goes into hundreds of years, I suppose. But just looking at where is the pool industry going to struggle, we don't want a repeat of 2008, 9, and 10. And so we focus on what are the challenge pools. Well, that's a piece of pipe sticking up through concrete. Okay, there's your source of your leak on your pool because the water just follows the pipe down. And so we are aware, we're very focused on water stop technology. And if you're just going to use a pipe, we sell a glue-on water stop to quit pools leaking because then it's chemicals and now you need more chlorine. Oh, wait, we can't buy it. We have a drought. So stopping leaks is really, really important. And so in new construction, all our new stuff has water stops and that kind of a thing. So we use this knowledge to know where our customers going to be in a bind, focused on those products. So that's the 10-inch retrofit, the square, and then, we have for the unblockables for new construction, remodels. So we try to triage, okay, what are they going to need first? And we've been focused on that testing.
Crank up the oven.
Listen, so did we talk about, I think we talked about it a little bit about how the products are going to change. Like, are they going to be the old products, are they going to be the same as the new products?
I think generally speaking, that answer is yes. So we have drain covers that had a wall and a floor rating. The cover itself is not going to change. Its marking's going to change. It's going to say VGBA. Because we're talking about Virginia Ground Baker Act. VGB is a person, so that's one of the things that CPSC and the families actually have asked us to call it VG.
I think that's a good idea to separate it.
VGBA, yeah, VGBA is a federal law. VGB is a tragic story. So that marking, instead of it could be ASME, APSP, VGB 2008, all those kinds of markings you would see on covers currently will be VGBA 2017. So it'll just be that marking. They will be marked blockable or unblockable. That's a technical measurement and testing thing that you won't know in the field. So we'll tell you that'll be on it. One of the big things is instead of saying flow rating, floor and wall, basically two numbers, you're likely going to see 4 flow rating C instructions. Because as I mentioned, our A10 RCFR, I think it's got something like 20 or 30 flow ratings. Because it's designed for everything.
Can we back up just a quick second here? Could you explain in layman's terms the difference between blockable and unblockable drains?
Sure. So an unblockable, let me start with a blockable drain. That's easier to visualize. So if you picture me, I'm an adult man and my shoulders being 18 inches wide, from my shoulders to my belt being 23 inches. So that's the biggest area a person can block. And so a blockable drain fits inside of that, can be shallow. So if you picture laying down on an 8-inch drain cover, front, back, doesn't matter. It's easy to block. An unblockable drain pokes out in some direction. So if you have a 32-inch channel drain, it's going to stick out from under me in some direction, no matter how I lay down. Or it could be, for example, a 24 by 24. Well, that's big. I can't cover it all. So unblocked means it sticks out in some direction. The significance of that, it's twofold. If it's unblockable in an existing pool, you don't need a backup device such as an SVRS or a gravity flow system, vent, those automatic pump shut off, all those things that. So if you block a blockable drain and the suction goes high, we have a way to alleviate that suction so you don't get held down. So that's why the blockable ones stick up and our trip hazards come. So the unblockable sticks out from under it, therefore they can be flat and flushing up to the floor of the pool. And it's a two-part. It's the physical measurement I described, and then when that's blocked, what's the suction force? So it's a two-part in the lab. There's no way to know that in the field. So now that's going to be in the instructions and marked.
Oh, fantastic.
So if it says unblockable, I only need one to comply with federal law. Now, a lot of states and local governments, before we had these tests for drain covers, said we want 2 of them 3 feet apart. So blockables, you have to have 2 of them 3 feet apart. Unblockable, you only need 1. So it's 2 things. You can put 1 in the spa, and it won't be flat. It can be flat. So
I heard you like to blow stuff up in the sky. Is that true? Is there some pyrotechnic thing going on here?
Yeah, I'm retired. But I shot fireworks professionally in Phoenix, Arizona for 37 years.
Oh, cool.
Professional fire. And it did. Yeah, it was a blast.
Yeah, now they're going to call it a dad
That was
joke.
a good dad joke.
20 years ago, you might have got away with it, but...
yeah, I got busted on the podcast. But yeah, I did that for... it was televised. I did the big show in Phoenix for decades, and so it'd be televised.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay.
4th of July, yeah. It's no small... you talk about stress, is knowing you're on live TV, and you ask the producer for CBS, so if, I hypothetically have a problem and I can't shoot fireworks, what are you going to do? And it's like, we have no problem. This was my very first live televised. I was like, I regret asking that question. It was 120 degrees out, but I was sweating, double sweating after learning that. I was like, don't you have I Love Lucy or something?
Now,
good news is that show went off without a hitch. After that,
I did have one final question, and I know you're very, very passionate about the entrapment issues, and there's a reason you're so passionate about these entrapment issues. Would you mind sharing that with everybody? If you don't have to, if you don't want to.
Sure. No, I didn't say anything for many, many decades. I was entrapped in a public pool for a minute and 10 seconds.
Wow.
And I did not say anything for years because I've been so heavily involved in making, designing, testing drain covers. And I didn't want people to be, he's just an anti-smoking zealot kind of thing, right? But the short version of it is there's a water park in Tempe, Arizona called Big Surf, and it's a wall built in the 60s. 110,000 gallons, and it takes and they pump it full of water, and then it opens the valve, and it can create a wave big enough to surf on. And so that filling that wall takes a minute and 10 seconds. And I was mouthing then too, and a lifeguard and I were bantering back and forth about what a great Olympic swimmer I was, and he wanted to prove me wrong. Says, here, swim behind the line and go down to that drain.
Oh, wow.
And I foolishly did that. And so I'm standing on the drain. It's like the size of a door, 4 foot by 8 foot kind of a thing. And I'm standing on it. And the water's blasting down over the top of me. And I'm thinking, I won't cuss on
you can. We have a bleep.
I was not. I said, what do you do? And then the other thing is don't collapse. I knew I could hold my breath, but for long enough, I was like, don't fall down because it'll knock the wind out of you. And so the minute 10 seconds was up, the water stops briefly for that wave, and I swam away. Somehow I was smart enough to get away from it. And then later when we started designing drains, and they're like, oh, we just need a piece of pipe in the floor of the pool. I'm like, no, this is way more complicated. And this was before the drain cover standard existed in 1987. So that was a big factor in my life.
I think knowing the story behind your passion doesn't take away from it. It only adds to it.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
People really appreciate the fact knowing that, you're doing what you do and you can relate to these folks, at least on some level, the ones that had, the really, really bad scares and stuff. And I just think that adds a lot more to, especially being part of the design of it, knowing this needs to be perfect because, and you actually have that feeling, you know what I mean? So I think that's amazing. Steve, let me, thank you for being here.
So I just want to say one thing real quick. It's poolsafely.gov. I actually made the mistake one time of going to poolsafely.org, and that does not exist. So if you want to go to that website, it's poolsafely.gov. And if you want to hear about Abigail Taylor's story, which Rudy and I actually mentioned both of those websites in our episode about drowning prevention, that's Abby's Hope, ABBEYS, hope.org.
All right, everybody. Steve Barnes, Science and Compliance Director at Aquastar Products. Thank you for being with us, Steve.
Well, I appreciate you sharing the story with us too. That was, a pretty intense thing to go with. So I can't imagine, or to go through. I'm sorry. So I can't imagine. But thanks for being on the show.
Honored to be here and join you.